I recently had the idea of making a factory game based on a hexagonal grid. So I spent 2 months making a proof of concept to see if it works, and I think it can be absolutely amazing. I made simple pine trees that you can harvest by hand to get 2 saplings. You can then place down those saplings, which will quickly grow into full trees. But of course, it wouldn't be a factory game without some automation. So I made a harvester that will harvest the trees in its range and place the saplings into an adjacent chest. The harvester is powered by this infinite battery. You can connect them using power poles, which will automatically connect to nearby machines. I didn't do a planter yet, so I have to place the saplings by hand, and once they grow into full trees, they are getting collected and placed in a chest, from which I can pick them up in my inventory. I also made a rough conveyor belt system, which can take items from a chest and bring them to another. You can also gather iron and copper from the ores. And finally, I made a simple crafting system, which is basically an exact copy of Minecraft's crafting grid, but in a hexagonal pattern. I added a chest recipe. It starts by making a few iron plates, then some screws, some rods, combine those to make a hinge, and you can make a chest. This demo is very rough, the UX is not great, and it's obviously lacking content. But I'm hopeful. I think this can be an amazing project for my first indie game. So now, I want to start fresh with a new repo and putting a lot more care into my codebase. I have 3 major inspirations for this game. The first one is Satisfactory, a classic of the factory game genre. I love the combination of exploration and factory, and the fact that it can be played in co-op. Second is Dyson Sphere Program. I think this game is beautiful and super intuitive. But what I like the most is how peaceful it is. There's no enemies, no monsters, you can just get away from your keyboard in the middle of your base and nothing will try to kill you. And finally, my biggest inspiration: Feed the Beast. This is a bit of a weird one. Feed the Beast is an ensemble of Minecraft mod packs, most of which revolve around industry and automation. Those mod packs were my first exposition to the factory game genre, and in my opinion, some of those mods are more satisfying and fun than many other factory games out there. If you like Minecraft and factory games, I recommend you give it a go. So, with my inspirations and my demo, I will put together a few design pillars. Number 1. I want this game to be playable in both single player and in co-op multiplayer. I just love playing factory games with my friends, so I want my game to have this option too. Number 2. I want modding to be an integral part of the game. As I said, Feed the Beast is my biggest inspiration and one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. And it could not have existed if Minecraft wasn't so easy to mod. I want the same philosophy in my game. Number 3. I want my game to be peaceful and joyful. I believe that this means, at first, there will not be any enemies or monsters, similar to Dyson Sphere Program. Now, this will cause a little bit of a problem when it comes to having challenge in the game, but I think I can solve this in other ways. I am also not close to the idea of having dungeons or special events in the game that have enemies. Number 4. I refer to this one as the game feeling personal. What I mean by that is that I want the user to feel like they are part of the world, not a godlike entity controlling the world from above. This means a feeling more like Dyson Sphere Program, Minecraft or Satisfactory, as opposed to something like Civilization or most city builders and strategy games. Number 5. I want this game to be based on a hexagonal grid. I already mentioned this one, and I have to say it is completely arbitrary. I like grid-based games such as Minecraft, especially for a small game like this one. I think it makes everything simpler. Also, this adds a nice engineering challenge. The idea is that those design pillars will be my guidelines when making any further design decision for this game. Right, I have a demo, I have a direction, now it's time to dive into development. I begin by creating a new Unity project with a universal render pipeline. I then set up the packages I know I will need, such as the input system, Cinemachine, and for networking I will be using the new netcode for game objects, lobby and relay packages from Unity. The feature set seems decent and I like the idea of staying first party. When making a multiplayer game, it is recommended to start with the networking. So the first thing I did was place down a few hexagonal tiles, make a capsule character, and try to get two Unity clients to connect to each other. Now to push the first commit to Git, and I can officially say that the game begins. The working title is Hexagonally. To handle a hexagonal world, I will need an appropriate coordinate system and the right math to support it. And when it comes to hexagonal game math, there is no better resource than the article Hexagonal Grid by RedBlobGames. It is simply incredible. There's two main ways to manipulate hexagonal coordinates: offset coordinates and cube or axial coordinates. I decided to choose the cube coordinate system. I think it looks so clean and it really feels like embracing the hexagonal twist fully. In terms of orientation, I will go for a pointy layout because I think it looks a bit cleaner. I will have to fiddle around a lot with all this math, so I made a sandbox scene where I can nicely experiment and play around with my math library, which I will call MathHex. I then made a struct to represent my coordinates, and I began manipulating them. It took me a few tries. But after a lot of fiddling, I managed to have something that looks quite solid. I can detect which grid hex the cursor is hovering. I can get coordinates in a given range. And finally, I can play around with my direction calculations. I think it will be a solid foundation for dealing with my hexagonal world. I have created a Discord server that you are very welcome to join if you wish to give feedback, ideas, or just talk about the game. I will end this first devlog here, hoping it has caught your interest in the game I'm making. Thank you very much for watching. Hoping to see you again in the next episode.